for public services, and how that the expansion of revenue is a reflection of the economy. And indeed, this was noted by Stephen Guerrero, director of the Office of Finance and Budget, where he said, quote, "Now I can say with confidence that the economy is picking up quicker than we expected." So there is that. Then also there was news issued this morning regarding the dropping of the unemployment rate down to 4.8%. And in the release, as quoted is Guam's economic recovery has accelerated substantially in recent months. Tourism and construction are on the upswing. Statistical indicators of this are increased. Governor Guam revenue receipts, increased tourist arrivals, increased unemployment, increased average number of hours worked, and increased average weekly wage and declining unemployment rates. And they're quoting the Guam Department of Labor Chief Economist Gary Hiles. And then in addition to this, there was a report today about S&P's new rating for the Port Authority of Guam. The S&P Global Ratings maintained its outlook for the Port Authority of Guam at a stable and a firm A long-term rating on the agency's outstanding theories and bonds. And in particular, there was a reference in there saying the S&P rating. S&P said the rating reflected the Port Authority's strong enterprise risk profile and strong financial risk profile that can be attributed to Guam's, quote, very strong economic fundamentals and the port's essentially and virtual monopolist position as sole provider of maritime facilities and services in Guam. The report also went to talk about how a comment on the port's own management saying, quote, "We consider the authority's management and governance strong, reflecting our view of the port's strategic positioning, risk and financial management, and organizational effectiveness," states the rating report released Thursday by Standard & Poor's Global Ratings. It goes on to say that the authority has historically operated in a fiscally prudent manner, implementing tariff increases needed, building and maintaining both cash reserves and minimally relying on debt issuance and to meet capital needs. SMC the rating reflected the Port Authority's strong enterprise risk profile and strong financial risk profile that can be treated to Guam's, again, strong economic position here. And the person who helped produce that result is joining us now with the head of the Port Authority of Guam, Rory Respicio. Good morning, Rory. I think you're a bit muted, Rory.
Oh,
there we go.
Yeah. Good morning, Ty. Yeah.
So quite a cropper for Port Week in terms of having this independent outside source S&P to validate not only the port's financial health but the effectiveness of its management and its long-term interest in the future and how those are being very carefully and properly managed.
Thank you for saying that. And also, it's similar to what the governor said yesterday in her speech. We had Port Week, the flag raising ceremony yesterday. Mm-hmm. We had about 45 trucks that participated in a parade of trucks. We had about 350 people that participated. The governor and lieutenant governor gave remarks, as well as our board vice chair. And when the governor spoke, Ty, she said that the measure of success for any organization is its financial. It's what the credit raters view that organization. And the governor said what you just said. She talked about the port affirming its A status bonds for our 2018 revenue bond. When these bonds were let out, they were let out at negative, and then we were able to improve that to stable in 2022. During the pandemic, we were on credit watch because of the pandemic. Then we came out of the pandemic in a strong
credit watch, by the way, and a lot of other commercial ports were under credit watch as well because the global supply chains were being and so it wasn't just Guam, it was a global phenomenon given the disruptions of the supply chains. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And one of the indicators from Standard & Poor's and Moody's in bringing our revenue bond to stable was that the port remained 100% operational throughout the pandemic. And the governor also talked about the stability in the management, in the leadership. And when she said those things, it kind of reminded me of what I've been saying to the legislature and to our adversaries every chance I get, is that when they make these negative comments about the port, when they make allegations about the port with no substantiated facts behind it, it only hurts our posture in the bond market. And so we have to be very responsible and careful about what we say about each other locally because they're paying attention. And when I have meetings with S&P and Moody's, they read the papers all the time. This is why I'm very protective of the port, of our brand, and when any time I'm hearing something about the port being said, I'm all over it to make sure that what they're saying is further from the truth.
Well,
Especially when our
Rory,
auto
that occurred to me too when I was reading the comments of Senator Joanne Brown, who was criticizing the efforts of the Guam Airport Authority, he's been missing out on a number of economic opportunities because they're limited by how long they can lease airport assets at, and it was a peculiar sort of critique that invoked the Port Authority of Guam and that whole Y2K thing, which is something you've had to surmount. But I was looking at that and said, well, the bondholders aren't going to like this one, which not only a slam against the Airport Authority, but the Port Authority of Guam, particularly since it happened under Senator Brown's own tenure as head of the port. It's this sort of short-sighted sort of shots, I think doesn't necessarily serve the public interest, even though it's good for headlines.
Oh, well, that's unfortunate. When we have those kinds of senators that are doing things for the headlines, it's not really good for what we're trying to do in the case of the port. We're starting off Port Week with a huge bang. I plan to have 3 separate town hall meetings with all the employees, the day shift, the night shift, and the admin staff, reminding them of where we came from, where we're at, and where we're going. Because for us, Ty, it's only the beginning. And with the geopolitical situation, what's happening with the Indo-Pacific strategy and the Pacific deterrence, and just how much the governor, lieutenant governor, and Congresswoman Berdalio, former congresswoman, has really been helping us. We really have a good message to tell. And Guam being the tip of the spear, the port needs to be ready in order to support military readiness, and we're being able to get that kind of attention on the national stage.
And basically, the point you're mentioning, Rory, is because of the ramping of the military buildup, but for other things, including the Guam defense system, that should make available or help influence federal grant opportunities for investment into the ports, for needed equipment, et cetera. Now, before we get into that, Rory, you mentioned about you're talking to the employees about how far the port has gone in the last few years. And I think it's worth remembering where the situation was even pre-pandemic that you inherited, where I believe the port's finances were running at a deficit, were they not? And to accomplish all that's been accomplished and to go as reflected in the S&P bond rating through a pandemic is quite a feat, considering where you started.
Well, my predecessor ended with a net negative $104,000. We made $7.5 million the first year. Went from 36 hours berth time to discharge a vessel down to 22 hours. It's all documented in the citizen-centric report. There was 5 years of high-risk status from independent auditors, and for the last 3 years, we've been low-risk auditee with no significant findings. And so this is the kind of messaging we have. We've reached out to our port users group. We asked them to trust us that the decisions we make is going to be financially prudent. We're going to stabilize the finances, and we're going to work from the bottom up. And we've been doing that. And because our trust and credibility is really high, even on the national level, we recently received a $5.7 million grant tied for yard equipment based on the new marine highway designation and project designation. When we reached out last year with the CNMI to apply for this marine highway designation through MARAD, and that gave us an opportunity to apply for special kind of considerations because of this special designation. That's how we got the 5.7 million. And so those are the kind of things that we celebrate with the employees, but we tell the employees we can't do it without them. And they're at the center of everything that we do. And the morale, the productivity, it reflects all of those things. And we're just going to keep celebrating them every day of the year. But this whole week, actually are going to celebrate them even more, and that was how we kicked off Port Week.
Yeah, and I couldn't let this subject pass of pointing out that you have all these major plans for investment in port facilities, but at the same time, you will not be raising port tariffs over the next couple of years, right? Which is good news for anyone concerned about the cost of living on Guam.
Well, the governor allocated $15 million from the American Rescue Plan money to the port. she did it with the commitment from us and our board that we would not raise tariffs for the next 2 years. It's never anyone's intent to raise tariffs, especially the governors.
Mm-hmm.
But those kinds of revenues have to be assessed year after year to make sure we're actually charging what it costs to do these things. But for the next 2 years, we're not even attempting to raise any tariffs, and the governor gave us some bridge financing to be able to not do that, and we're allocating that entire 15 million to the HWAR project, which we received. It's a $59 million project for $23 million worth of funding.
And when do you believe that project will be finished? It's been we had a great ceremony to kick it off, but it's multi-year sort of thing, right?
Correct. So we're hoping mid-year 2024.
Wow.
Maybe by August of 2024, we have to have substantial completion. But we're having challenges because of the Buy American issue, which I thank you as your role as infrastructure czar and what you've been doing to raise the issues on also on the national stage. That this Buy American compliance it's going to cost us $12 million in order to comply with Buy American to protect the $10 million grant. So if we do the math, it does not make sense at all. And so that's what we've been communicating to MARAD with that respect. The Association of American Ports just released their top 5 strategic initiatives,
Mm-hmm.
and their top initiative is to petition the Biden White House to waive the Buy American for yard equipment and also for construction materials, particularly steel.
Okay, we have time for I think we've lost somebody. We had somebody online, and they were on hold by a lesson. But anyway, so perhaps, Rory, why don't you sort of paint a picture? Now, some of this is contingent upon our success in acquiring federal support for the port, particularly since its critical role with the ongoing military buildup. On the other hand, we are now in this period, and though there's no formula funding for the port, there's a huge expansion of competitive funding for ports across the country, in this once in a generation opportunity for infrastructure. And so I, for one, am optimistic about the Port Authority of Guam's ability to acquire it. I mean, you had a huge award for on the RAISE grant last year, I believe, right, of about 40 million or something like that.
Yeah, 18.9 million.
18.9 million.
For
Yeah.
F1 to F6.
Yeah, but still, in addition to other grants which you receive. So, but generally speaking, maybe paint a picture, because you're going to have to do this anyway when you meet with the port employees. A picture as to what we can envision for the port moving forward.
We're actively, competitively competing for all these funding sources that are available. We recently received a $1.2 million grant from the former Office of Economic Adjustment. And so what this would do is phase 1, it will do a thorough water infrastructure assessment.
Mm-hmm.
The second phase will assess our aging facilities. And the third phase will determine some of the opportunities for the port to engage with DoD as a customer, like Area A, the fuel storage tank that's empty, also Hotel Wharf, H Wharf, and what that could do for joint military uses. And so, for example, if DoD decides to use Area A for their fuel storage needs in this area, that will be additional throughput that we can securitize, as well as any new activity coming out of HWARF. And so we're not only looking for handouts, we're saying that with all the money that's going to be required to rehabilitate our wharves, our aging facilities, and get those 3 gantry cranes that we sorely need,
Mm-hmm.
the way to fund it is to find more opportunities for DoD to be a customer for the port. And our master plan update kind of reflects all of that.
And this, just to give folks a sense of how the pace of the military buildup is going, in the latest estimates achieved by Joint Region, military construction is going to reach well over the billion mark, maybe close to 2 billion mark, and by 2024, and that will last for a couple years at least. And key to that, a lot of making that happen is of course bring in materials and stuff to the Port Authority in Guam. But it gives the indication as to how it's important not only for the expansion, But I think it also has to be considered is an emerging view, particularly on as small as ours, is how civilian infrastructure is important about building resiliency for national security interests. And that's true of the roads, and it's been true of the power system, and it's also true of the port, and it will be true of other areas, including broadband. And I know you and the Lieutenant Governor have had meetings with members of Congress on both sides of the aisle, by the way, that sort of convey this message.
That's true. That's true. And also Admiral Nicholson wrote a very, I think, like a 3-page letter to the governor, expressing to her that with the Indo-Pacific strategy and the Pacific deterrence, that the port military readiness is directly linked to the port readiness. And so even Admiral Nicholson is looking at ways to maybe dredge HWARF up to 40 feet. Maybe in his mind, he'd like to berth the aircraft carrier on this side of the ocean, which we welcome, because that's what the port stands ready to do. And we're looking at least $15 billion worth of, like you said, military construction up until fiscal year 2029. And so all of these things are befalling on us, and we're positioned to go after these grants, and we're moving forward to keep the port modernized through efficiencies and through making sure all the employees' needs are met.
That's Rory Respicio, General Manager of the Port Authority of Guam, celebrating Port Week. Thanks, Rory. As we head to the PNC News at the bottom of the hour, see you all on the other side.
PNC News updates are brought to you by 76 Circle K. Take it easy.